The top stories tonight in Y News. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III admits that some of his personnel lack of a sense of urgency, causing the delayed distribution of sickness and death benefits for health professionals infected with the new coronavirus and those we have lost to it.
More than 10 bereaved families of health workers who have succumbed to COVID-19 received their 1 million peso checks.
The Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange, or PTEX, prepares for a new normal ahead of restart of operations. National government to limit the arrival of repatriated OFWs, seafarers, and overseas Filipinos, 1,200 per day for faster processing and better accommodation.
Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison says that people should find another way to express their view ahead of planned Black Lives and Indigenous Lives protests, while the New South Wales Supreme Court denies permission for Black Lives Matter protests in Sydney tomorrow.
An 80-year-old Chinese grandma captivates online customers to buy her red apricots through her humor. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, June 5, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next 45 minutes as we deliver today's top stories around the globe. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, the joint administrative order for the release of benefits of healthcare workers affected by COVID-19 was issued last night. Under the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, medical frontliners with severe or critical COVID-19 cases shall receive 100,000 pesos as financial assistance from the government. For those who had succumbed to COVID-19, their families will receive 1 million pesos. According to Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, the joint administrative order guides the distribution of 1 million to each of the 32 families of the health workers who died from coronavirus infection. President Rodrigo Duterte gave the health department until June 9 to complete the distribution of benefits. One of the hot issues in the country today is the delayed distribution of benefits of healthcare workers who are battling the COVID-19 pandemic and they themselves got infected with the virus. Now, President Rodrigo Duterte gave an order to the Health Secretary to create a new team. Rosalie Coz, who monitored the President's talk to the Filipino people, will be with us tonight to tell us why live. Yes, Rosalie, good evening.
Good evening, Harleen. President Rodrigo Duterte expresses great dismay over the delay of the distribution of COVID-19 sickness and health benefits for health workers who are severely sick from the virus or died because of it. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III actually admits that some of his personnel seem to lack a sense of urgency. Here's what he told our president.
Nakakahiya talaga, sir. Namatayan na nga. Tapos nagpawardi-wardi yung mga tao ko na parang walang sense of urgency, sir. Yun ang talagang sama-sama po ng loob ko, Mr. President.
What with the issues on the delayed benefits distribution, President Duterte has given a directive to the health chief to create a new team that will focus on the immediate distribution of the benefits under the Bayanihan to Heal as One law. Here's what President Duterte told the health chief.
Secretary Duque, you have the full authority to assemble a team. It may not really be from your office or from the department itself. You can get persons of known honesty dyan sa opisina, temporary, just for a new designation, just to take care of these funds, which ought to be in the hands of the intended beneficiaries by this time.
The chief executive also wants to dismiss those government officials involved in the delay of the benefits release. The president also underscored that he understands that Secretary Duque is having a hard time. The president advised him to ask for help from other departments. The chief executive also compared the issue with the chaos happening in the United States of America. For him, it's a great thing that Filipinos are law-abiding citizens. Therefore, the benefits for the frontliners must be released immediately.
Mabutit na lang hindi tayo ganun. At na-timing nga naman that the Filipinos are really law-abiding. Imagine if America to, how can you enforce the lockdown and the sequestration, itong quarantine? Butit na lang gano'n, no? So, we have to respond to the problem besetting the distribution of the assistance to them.
Harleen?
Rosalie, the president earlier also talked about the anomaly surrounding the distribution of the government's cash aid through the social amelioration program. Rosalie, why did the president reiterate this?
Yes, Arlene, President Duterte said that corrupt barangay officials will face malversation charges for personally using public funds were pertaining to the Social Amelioration Program Fund, which primarily must benefit those severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The president underscored the national government will not help those erring barangay officials.
All right, thank you so much, Rosalie Cos, for that report.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque had an order to his subordinate last night. Aiko Miguel report.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque III last night ordered his subordinates not to go home until the recipients of the mandated benefits for healthcare workers hit by COVID-19 do not receive their compensation. The health chief personally admitted to President Duterte that some of his personnel seem to lack the sense of urgency in bringing the compensation to where it is due. Also around noon today, the health chief posted a tweet acknowledging the delay in the previous days. President Duterte emphasizes that 2 months is long overdue to fail to distribute the benefits, something the DOH should have acted on with immediacy. In this afternoon's DOH press briefing, Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere reported that 13 of the 32 bereaved families have received their 1 million worth of check each. One family received a check last night. 10 checks were sent today in the National Capital Region, and 2 others were sent in Region 11. The remaining 19 checks have been forwarded to their Centers for Health Developments and respective regional offices for proper distribution. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The House of Representatives passed on the third and final reading a bill that will make PCR testing in the country's vulnerable sector mandatory. And the public need not worry about the cost of the PCR testing if the bill gets signed into law. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
In a bid to further enhance the country's ability to detect and stop the spread of COVID-19, the House of Representatives passed House Bill 6865, or the Crushing COVID-19 Act. The bill seeks to make mandatory PCR testing in the vulnerable sector of the society. Included in the vulnerable sector are patients and healthcare workers with symptoms, or those without symptoms but have relevant history of travel or contact with a confirmed COVID-19 case. Non-health frontliners responding to the pandemic, like those personnel working in quarantine facilities. Authorities manning checkpoints. Social workers in charge of distributing social amelioration program and relief goods. Filipino workers with pre-existing medical conditions like hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, pregnant women, and the immunocompromised. Also included are Filipino nationals and foreigners entering the Philippine territory. Those holding quarantine passes will frequently go outdoors to buy supplies, and patients required to pass the PCR test prior to a medical operation. Although mandatory, the public need not to worry about the cost because PhilHealth will cover the payment for the PCR testing. But foreign nationals will have to pay for their own. To ease the cost of testing, a pooled baseline testing will be conducted for asymptomatic cases from the vulnerable sector. According to Representative Janet Garin, swab tests will be done individually and will be grouped by tens. The mixture would then be joined and will be tested as one. If the result comes out negative, all 10 will be treated negative. Should the bill be passed into law, the crushing COVID-19 Act will be in effect until the state of public health emergency is lifted. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
We have been reporting total cases and deaths from new coronavirus infection. But this time, let's take a closer look at the numbers for recoveries in the countries turned upside down by the COVID-19 pandemic. The United States of America, with more than 1.8 million confirmed coronavirus cases, have also reported 485,000 recoveries. In the state of New York, still the epicenter, yet has reported more than 66,000 patients recovering from the disease. Brazil, which trails the United States, surpassing the 600,000 mark, has more than 254,000 known recoveries. Noticeably, Germany's medical frontliners have helped about 91% of their patients recuperate from the respiratory disease. Now, looking at countries 5 to 10, India continues to struggle in helping their COVID-19 patients recover. It has a total of 227,029 cases. 48% of those have recovered. China, on the other hand, which has reportedly controlled the virus transmission, has 94% of its total cases recovered from the coronavirus infection. Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that 244 new cases were reported today, raising the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infections in the Philippines to 20,626, and that is of 4 p.m. today. We have lost 3 more patients. But through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 82 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total number of recoveries nationwide to 4,330. Thanks be to God. All systems are go for the restart of operations in the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange, or PTEX. New policies are in place to comply with the minimum health standards. Joanna Nano reports why.
If soon you will be using PITX, be sure to notice visual cues which intend to guide passengers when falling in line. Footbaths will be found at the terminal's entrance gates. These are all part of the new normal at the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange. Wearing a face mask will be mandatory. Alcohol rub is available in every corner of the terminal. There will be medical personnel on standby at the entrance to attend to passengers who will manifest symptoms of COVID-19. An isolation facility is also provided in PITX. Reception and ticketing booths are now covered with plastic barriers to prevent physical contact between passengers and PITX staff. Social distancing signage is everywhere, even on seats in waiting areas. The terminal management advises passengers to download the PITX application to avoid direct contact when getting a ride. This will also help in faster contact tracing if necessary.
Through PITX app, pag naka-register na po kayo dyan, hindi na po namin kukunin ng information every time na pupunta po kayo ng ticketing system namin. All you have to do is just flash yung QR code nyo, papasok po kayo sa turnstile namin, makakasakay na po kayo.
As of the moment, the Transportation Department is not yet allowing PITX to operate.
Kami sa DOTR, kami sa LTFRB, naiintindihan namin yung plight ng ating mga commuters. Pero kasi kailangan din nating isipin na yung sitwasyon natin ngayon ay hindi naman normal. So hindi naman talaga sa isang iglap pwede na nating palabasin lahat ng sasakyan.
PITX serves as a terminal for buses bound for Cavite, Batangas, Bicol, and other parts of Southern Luzon. Joanna Nano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, more city bus routes are opening, which are seen to benefit public commuters in Metro Manila and adjacent areas. Asher Kadapan Jr. will tell us why.
The Department of Transportation, hand in hand with the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, continues to open more routes for city buses in Metro Manila and adjacent places. 3 more routes were opened today, which include routes between Monumento and Balagtas, Bulacan, EDSA and Montalban, Rizal, and the Naiya Loop. As of today, 8 out of the 31 rationalized routes have been opened, with 5 opening earlier this week. 3 more routes are scheduled to open on Monday, June 8, as part of the gradual and calibrated approach of the transport sector.
We already are scaling up the number of city bus routes that would be open. In fact, every time that we open sets of routes, meron po yung tinatawag na coordination meeting na ginagawa po natin. Kagaya nung ginawa natin kahapon ng hapon, kung saan nandun yung mga operators of the routes that were open, together with IAC at saka MMDA, para pag mailatag na tatakbo na yung mga bus, no? Sa araw na bubuksan yung mga rota na yan, we would be able to reduce, if not eliminate, the problems on the road.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Jago William, we are on board the UNTV radio mobile booth and we are here in IDP Road in Quezon City. Let's take a look at the situation on the road. Jago Williams, so far we have a light traffic situation here in our area along a westbound lane of IDP Road going to Commonwealth Avenue. However, on the other side of the road going to Litex, we are seeing some moderate traffic buildup. Also, for those who are traversing the northbound lane of Commonwealth Avenue, expect some moderate to heavy traffic flow. Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte turns down the request of Cebu province to allow back riding of motorcycles due to lack of public transportation. According to the chief executive, he would be charged if he allowed one but not the others. The president expresses support for the no back riding policy the interagency task force against COVID-19 is imposing.
If I begin to give an exemption to one, I will open myself to charges of anti-graft law, giving another an undue advantage.
Interior Secretary Eduardo Año explains the government cannot allow back riding since it violates physical distancing protocols.
Sa loob ng bahay, wala po tayong magagawa kung sila'y mag-violate ng physical distancing, pero sa publiko napakahirap makita ng iba na pinapayagan nating magkadikit sila at nagpapatupad tayo ng physical distancing at saka pagsusunod ng mask. Napakahirap po talaga, pero health po pinag-uusapan natin, health risk, hindi yung convenience, hindi yung makakatipid sila, pero buhay pagka nahawa yung isa, sigurado mahawa yung isa. It is costlier kung mamamatay sila.
Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia, for her part, withdraws her executive order that allows back riding on motorcycles within her province. Repatriated Filipino workers and seafarers coming from COVID-19 stricken countries will have to stay in Metro Manila for only 5 days or less. According to National Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, they do not want a repeat of what had happened previously, that arriving OFWs got stranded in Manila and stayed in quarantine facilities longer than only 14 days after getting tested for COVID-19. Secretary Lorenzana added that after an inter-department meeting, a system is in place and there are enough testing facilities all over Metro Manila to accommodate more arriving Filipino workers from abroad. Secretary Lorenzana further told the President that according to Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III, 42,000 more OFWs are arriving in the coming days. The official added they plan on controlling or limiting the arrivals to only 1,200 a day. And when this move is pulled off, they can raise the numbers to 1,500 or even 2,000 for faster processing. Also, Secretary Lorenzana brought up that aside from OFWs and seafarers abroad, they are also working on repatriating students, tourists, and foreigners who are permanent residents in the Philippines, although this group will shoulder the cost of testing when they arrived in Manila, separately from what is done for OFWs and seafarers whose tests are shouldered by the Philippine government.
The Philippine government is giving hope of owning a business for returning OFWs. There are more choices for technology-based livelihood than one. Ray Pelayo will give the details why.
The Department of Science and Technology is offering livelihood packages to overseas Filipino workers who wish to establish their own businesses in the Philippines. DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña said the department has 7 research and development institutes that may assist OFWs to establish technology-based businesses should they wish to settle for good in their localities. These technologies include food processing and packaging, furniture, electronics, and metalworks, among others. De la Peña said OFWs may avail of free training, which include assistance on how to devise their own business plans to determine the amount of capital they may need to start a business. Selected OFWs will be given cash assistance of up to 250,000 pesos, which includes the cost of equipment needed for the technology of their choice. Training is free, while the OFW will only pay for the equipment on installment basis within 3 years without interest, while the rest of the expenses will be shouldered by the DOST. Once the equipment is fully paid, the DOST will transfer its ownership to the OFW.
Kasi may mga OFW naman na may puhunan eh. So kailangan lang silang alalayan in terms of yung technology at saka yung sa entrepreneurial part.
The DOST plans to start the program in the National Capital Region for an initial of 25 companies. Interested OFWs may inquire about the programs at DOST regional and provincial offices or at the DOST main office in Taguig City for those in Metro Manila. Ray Pelayo, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Education or DepEd is studying possible cases or complaints against individuals or groups involved in selling some DepEd learning materials online. Lanteamento tells us why.
The Department of Education or DepEd has identified some individuals or groups involved in selling DepEd learning materials or modules through different online selling platforms. Education Undersecretary Elaine Pascua says their legal department is now taking action for possible charges or complaints. For now, DepEd is not naming names, nor is it disclosing if any DepEd personnel are involved in this illegal activity.
Para sa ganun ay hindi mo na magambala yung mga kasalukuyan nangyayari para kailangan kasi makuha natin lahat.
Pascua stresses authorized DepEd learning materials are available free of charge and can be downloaded through their official website, again for free. USEC Pascua reiterates DepEd has begun the process of quality assurance for those learning materials.
Kung may lumalabas ngayon na panahon na ito na mga kopya na yan, malamang yan ay mga draft versions pa lang at hindi pa yung mga final.
DepEd also warns its personnel who are asking for fees or payment for their online seminars or webinars. For complaints or reports, reach DepEd through deped.gov.ph or call cell phone numbers 0919-456-0027 or 0995-921-8461. Dantiamento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, 26 private colleges and universities in the Bicol region appeal for a tuition hike. Reportedly, the requested tuition increase aims for improvement of school facilities and wage hike for teachers. But Commission on Higher Education, Bicol, says this appeal for a tuition hike will not automatically be granted and explained that there are guidelines to follow before allowing such a move. The schools must also complete the required documents. The universities who applied for the tuition increase include Ateneo de Naga University, University of Nueva Cáceres, University of Santa Isabel, University of St. Anthony, and Divine Word College of Legazpi. Other applicants for tuition hike refused to comment.
Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte will review the proposed contract with water concessionaires Maynilad Water Services and Manila Water Company. The president apologized to the Ayalas and Pangilinans, the owners of the said water companies, for the harsh words he had said in relation to the onerous contracts with the government since 1997. This, as the business sector has been a great help to the government in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis. The chief executive directs the government panel to create a new and better deal with Maynilad and Manila Water. President Duterte said he is willing to settle with the two water concessionaires if they will accept a fair deal. If not, he warns of proceeding to another phase, which is the filing of cases.
I will review the contracts that are proposed by the government panel to the Ayala and Pangilinan Consortium. Ako, okay na ako. Basta mabawi lang ng pera ang tao. Even in installments sa ano ninyo. But you have to make some amends. Nagkalma ako kasi whether I like it or not, water is very important.
The United Kingdom hosted a virtual global vaccine summit on Thursday, which, according to British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, raised $8.8 billion. Johnson announced the figure at the end of a 3.5-hour online session, bringing together multiple world leaders amidst the current COVID-19 pandemic. The fund will be used for routine vaccinations in some of the world's poorest countries. Representatives of more than 50 countries, including 35 heads of state or government, participated to raise funds for the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, a public-private global health partnership. Gavi will use the pledged funds to tackle infectious disease crisis, including latest novel coronavirus. The British Prime Minister opened the summit by calling for donations of at least $7.4 billion to immunize a further 300 million children in the world's poorest countries by 2025 against diseases such as polio, diphtheria, and measles. Also in the UK, face coverings will be compulsory for passengers on buses, trains, aircrafts, and ferries in England from June 25, Transport Minister Grant Shapps said on Thursday. The official added people who do not comply could be refused to travel or fined. However, very young children, disabled people, and those who are with breathing difficulties are exempt. Meanwhile, the government's Chief Scientific Advisor Patrick Vallance has said that the number of new cases of the COVID-19 disease was only declining gradually. While official figures only confirmed 2,000 new cases the previous day, he estimated that the true number to be around 4 times that when accounting for undetected infections. Vallance said that the government and the public relatively little room for maneuver, urging caution as the public start to re-emerge from their homes in greater numbers. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has also urged people to resist meeting loved ones indoors as a prolonged period of warm weather is replaced by a cooler, rainier outlook. The European Commission has called on all EU member countries to lift their border restrictions by the end of this month. The aim is to allow passport-free travel across the bloc. According to Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson, the virus situation in the region was fast improving. Johansson explains that they are fast approaching a situation in which all the internal border restrictions and border checks must be lifted. A good date should be the end of June. Israel's airport workers union said the strike was called off following a request by Israeli Transportation Minister Miri Regev, who called the walkout unacceptable and urged the union to negotiate a solution. The interruption in air traffic lasted several hours. Global demand for air travel has plummeted amid the pandemic, and Ben Gurion Airport near Tel Aviv put about 2,500 airport workers on unpaid leave in early March. Israel has not said when it will end COVID-19 border restrictions. In other news, Russian rescuers prepare for operation on fuel spill in a river in Arctic region, which environmentalists say is the worst such accident in the Arctic, as investigators made their first arrest. A fuel tank at a power station in the remote industrial region lost pressure on May 29 and leaked 20,000 tons of fuel and lubricants, the investigative committee, a law enforcement agency, said. Much flowed into the river Ambarnaya. On Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin approved a state of emergency in the Arctic city of Norilsk after a huge leak of fuel into a river. The state government watchdog said 15,000 tons of oil products had seeped into the river system, with another 6,000 into the subsoil. The state fisheries agency says the river will need decades to recover. An expanse of crimson water could be seen stretching from shore to shore down a river, and one of its offshoots in aerial footage published by the Riga news agency this week. Norilsk, a remote city of 180,000 situated 300 kilometers inside the Arctic Circle, is built around Norilsk Nickel, the world's leading nickel and palladium producer. And something good to leave you to the weekend with. An 80-year-old grandma who sells red apricots in northwest China's Shaanxi province has won the hearts of netizens across the country through her rustic style of live streaming. This internet celebrity grandma is Kui Shuxia. Her grandson runs an online sales center for agricultural products. Kui used to help her grandson with her some of her work offline, but on May 24, she started live streaming in order to boost the sales of apricots further. During a live stream, Kui will demonstrate how soft and delicious the apricots are, a feat that is further illustrated by her lack of teeth. Kui's humorous and approachable style have attracted over 1,000 followers in 3 days. Her video will receive more than 10 million views within a week and has boosted the daily sales of local apricots to over 10,000 yuan. Kui said she hopes to further broaden the market for the red apricots together with her grandson. Kui is called Grandma Apricot by many fans.
Thank you, Marielle.
The NBA's Board of Governors approves a plan to restart the suspended 2019-2020 season with a tentative July 31 start at Disney World, Florida. The plan would see 22 of the NBA's 30 teams play 8 games to determine a 16-team playoff field that would follow the traditional postseason format, and then 4 best-of-7 series that would crown a champion no later than October 12. All games, practices, and housing would be at the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex inside the Orlando Resort. The 22 returning teams will be composed of the 8 teams from the 2 conferences currently in playoff positions, to include the 6 clubs that are 6 games or fewer behind the 8th seed in the respective conferences. If everything goes according to plan, the NBA said the 2020-2021 season would begin on December 1. The league also said it plans to hold its 2020 NBA draft lottery to determine the order of the first 14 selections on August 25. The actual NBA draft, typically held in June, is now scheduled for October 15.
And those are the reasons behind the news, June 5, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Angelo Castro III.
I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Have a great evening, everyone.